There are moments when history calls even the most celebrated men away from their lives they've so carefully built. For William Wyler, one of Hollywood's greatest directors, that call didn't come from a studio executive, but it came from a world at war.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
By the early 1940s, Wyler had already established himself among the finest filmmakers of his generation. His mastery of storytelling had earned him critical acclaim and commercial success, having been nominated for 4 Academy Awards. Every path before him promised greater fame. He could have remained safely in a California backlot, directing beneath the controlled lights of Hollywood while others fought and died an ocean away. Instead, he walked away from not only comfort, but certainty. Wyler seemed to believe that the greatest story of his generation was not unfolding on a soundstage, but in the skies over Europe, where thousands of young men climbed into bombers each morning with no assurance that they would return that evening. If the American people were to understand the cost of victory, they needed more than patriotic speeches and carefully staged newsreels. They needed to witness war as it truly was. That conviction led into a cramped interior of a Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress named the Memphis Belle. The Belle, after all, was only aluminum, rivets, engines, and canvas, a machine fashioned by human hands. Yet history occasionally transforms ordinary objects into enduring symbols. In her scarred skin and smoke-blackened wings, Americans came to recognize something larger than the aircraft itself. She became the embodiment of the quiet courage of the men who climbed aboard, knowing that every mission into occupied Europe might be their last. Commanded by Robert Morgan, who named the aircraft for his sweetheart Margaret Polk from Memphis, Tennessee, the Belle represented hope shared by every 8th Air Force crew. 25 combat missions. The number sounds almost modest today, but in 1943, it was nearly unimaginable. Every flight demanded passage through the walls of exploding flak, relentless attacks from German fighters, mechanical failures, bitter cold of the unpressurized planes, and simple chance. 25 missions meant survival. It meant home. Wilder recognized that if the crew completed its tour, their story would become America's story, one of hope, honor, and success. He approached Morgan early in the aircraft's combat career with an unusual request. He did not wish to dramatize courage. He intended to witness it. To accomplish this extraordinary task, cameras were mounted wherever a few precious inches could be found. Inside the plexiglass nose, beside the waist gunners, near the radio compartment, and deep within the lonely tail position where a single gunner watched the empty sky for enemy fighters. Space was so limited that many of the cameras couldn't even be operated during flight. Once the engines came alive, they simply recorded whatever history chose to reveal. Wilder did not remain safely behind the front lines. He flew aboard combat missions, placing himself amid the same bursts of German flak and in the path of the same attacking fighters that threatened every member of the crew. Anti-aircraft fire did not distinguish between filmmakers and airmen. Enemy pilots didn't concern themselves with Academy Awards. Inside the B-17 there were no celebrities. Only men trusting thin sheets of metal, 4 engines, and providence. Long before enemy fire appeared, the crew endured endless hours inside a vibrating cylinder of frozen metal. Temperatures plunged below zero. Oxygen masks concealed every breath, and conversations disappeared beneath the deafening roar of the 4 engines while frost spread across the windows. Every man listened for the sound he dreaded, the dull concussion nearby of flak, or the sudden rattle of machine gun fire. Then the sky itself would explode. Every explosion seen in Wyler's film is real. If the flak failed to destroy them, German fighters attacked at closing speeds that left only seconds to react. There were no rehearsals, there were no second takes, no opportunity to recreate what had been lost. It unfolded in an instant and exactly once. The danger claimed those entrusted with recording it as surely as those fighting it. One of Wyler's cameramen, Sergeant Harold J. Tannenbaum, was shot down over France and never returned. His only weapon had been his motion picture camera. His death remained with Wyler the rest of his life, a solemn reminder that bearing witness often demands sacrifices scarcely different from combat itself. The war left its mark on Wyler as well. The relentless thundering of the B-17's engines, combined with the repeated exposure to the exploding flak, permanently damaged his hearing. It was the invisible wound he carried with him for the remainder of his life, a lasting reminder that some sacrifices endure long after the shooting had stopped. On May 17, 1943, the Memphis Belle departed on her 25th combat mission. Her target was the immense U-boat pens of Laurent, where reinforced concrete shelters protected submarines attacking Allied shipping across the Atlantic. History often refuses the dramatic ending fiction would invent. There was no miraculous speeches, no impossible feats of heroism in the final moments. The achievement was quieter and therefore greater. The Belle endured one more day of extraordinary danger and returned once again to England. The engine slowed, the propellers stopped. The silence settled over the airfield. That silence may have been the greatest victory of all. 10 men climbed out of the aircraft, having accomplished something few believed possible. They understood better than anyone that survival is never earned. It's only granted. When the Memphis Belle, a story of the flying fortress, reached American theaters in 1944, audience encountered something that they had never seen before. It was not Hollywood's version of war. It was the war itself, captured in the vivid color by the men who willingly shared the risks of those they had filmed. Americans saw exhausted faces behind oxygen masks, aircrafts torn by shell fire, and skies filled with genuine explosions. They saw courage not only as mythology, but as ordinary young men quietly doing extraordinary things. After the war, Wyler returned to Hollywood and created some of the greatest films in American cinema, including The Best Years of Our Life, Roman Holiday, Ben-Hur, and my personal favorite, The Big Country. His films would earn more than 100 Academy Award nominations, winning 38 Oscars. Yet the experience of war never truly released him. Having witnessed young men confront death without illusion, he carried that hard-earned understanding into every story he told thereafter. The artifacts before us today are his silent companions to that remarkable journey. Wyler's personal 1942 Colt M1911A1 pistol and canvas belt rig were his constant companions on his trip through occupied Europe, and the German Mauser P.38 and the CZ VZ-27 were acquired pistols he brought home not as trophies of conquest, but as artifacts of his adventure. They are evidence of presence. They remind us that one of Hollywood's greatest artists willingly exchanged comfort for danger, certainty for sacrifice, and fiction for the truth, because he believed the world deserved an honest record of what these airmen endured. William Wyler was more than a director. He was a witness. The Memphis Belle gave America a symbol of hope, and William Wyler ensured that that hope would forever be grounded in truth. Through his courage, his sacrifice, and his unwavering belief that history should be seen rather than imagined, he preserved simply not just an airplane or a crew, but the enduring light of ordinary men facing extraordinary darkness. This August, these remarkable artifacts bear witness to that extraordinary commitment. They honor not only the men of the Memphis Belle, but also the filmmaker who left behind fame and security to stand beside them, ensuring that courage would never be surrendered to memory alone.